McKeon is a Republican from California. He's also the chairman of the Armed Services Committee. Nice to have you, sir. Thank you for talking with us.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. So you could see there that the tone has obviously changed. And as everybody sits around to try to figure out, well, why is the tone changing? Some have posited that, in fact, there's some kind of backroom deal that's happening. And that's what's changed the tone from being very doom and gloom and we're falling off a cliff of some kind to being more of it's a slow slide down a little path, I guess. What do you think is behind it?
You know, the president has taken so many positions on this issue, from the fact that he originally proposed the idea to where if we tried to fix it, he would veto it, to now it became the biggest disaster to ever hit the world, to now it's not such a big deal. Somewhere in between there is the truth. And the truth is that our defense has been cut greatly. Before we ever got to sequester, Secretary Gates cut $100 billion out of defense. And then the Joint Chiefs were assigned to find over $400 billion in cuts. That evolved to $487 billion in cuts that kicks in this year. That's $50 billion taken out of defense over the next 10 years. And then the sequestration on top of that adds another $50 billion. So we're looking at cutting.
So that sounds very doom and gloomy. I mean, you know, you've just laid out that that's bad. When I talked to Ray Mabus, Secretary of the Navy, he said essentially the same thing to me. Like, here's what's going to happen, and it's serious.
Well, those are the facts.
Yeah, let me play that first, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
Sure.
Readiness. We're going to have to take down 4 of 9 carrier air wings, and it'll take us a year to get them back, and it'll cost 2 or 3 times as much. And if we lurch from this budget crisis to the next artificial budget crisis, and that's the continuing resolution at the end of March, we'll start cutting some significant number of workers here.
So he reflects what you say. And then when you talk to Mayor Michael Bloomberg, the mayor here in the city of New York, he's sort of like, listen to that.
There's a lot of posturing. I'm going to lay off my employees today unless you do something. I'm going to we're going to close the hospitals down. We're going to take all the prisoners from jail and put them on the streets. Spare me. I live in that world. I mean, come on, let's get serious here.
Okay, so then which is it? Is serious?
Well,
doomy?
I'm focused on the defense side. We passed the Budget Control Act, and that put into place cuts of about $1 trillion, half of which came out of defense. And then it set in place the sequestration, which set up a super committee that was supposed to go after the runaway spending that are mandatory, that we have no control over. And they were supposed to find an additional $1 trillion of cuts that we could take out of that. When that failed, then the automatic cuts put in place by sequestration were supposed to kick in January 1st, and then that got moved back to March 1st. And as what really has happened is, when sequestration was passed and when the super committee failed, the military started to put into place things that held things in place. People are just kind of frozen in place. Jobs are not being created. People are not being hired. People were being let go, so that the fiscal cliff actually, as the president said, it's not a sharp drop-off, because it's been happening now for several months in preparation for January 1st and now March 1st.
Well, the time is certainly running out for you, for all of our elected officials who are investing a lot of hope in to meet this before we do go over that cliff or slide or however you want to characterize it. Congressman Buck McKeon, thank you for talking with us this morning, sir. We certainly appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.